I'm a Cantabrian, one-eyed Cantabrian, born and bred in Christchurch, and spent all my childhood years and schooling down there, and then literally joined the army straight out of school. It was something quite different. I was fit, but I don't know that I'd say I was necessarily strong back then. But it was a new experience for me. I loved it. Some of it was eye-opening in terms of military life. I knew really nothing about the military. I didn't know the difference between a private and a lieutenant colonel or a sergeant. So it was starting literally from basics, and that's the whole point of it, is to turn a civilian into someone that's got a clue. Someone knows how to use a rifle, use a machine gun, throw a grenade, use a radio, phonetic alphabet, talk on the radio, carry a pack, live in the field, dig a hole. Yeah, so it was amazing. And of course, friendships made under those sorts of circumstances are always pretty tight. So you make fantastic friendships because you go through those adversities together. There was always challenges in field exercises when you're, tired and hungry and cold and wet, and I think everyone has those highs and lows, but the highs far outweigh the lows. There were lots of hard times, physically, mentally, but I guess that's part of it really, isn't it? Growing and learning your boundaries and your limits. I chose to go logistics, transport, and I was really interested in that, and commanding soldiers and wheeling and dealing vehicles around the battlefield. And I would, absolutely in a male-dominated workplace. And in my first deployment to East Timor, there was myself as the female platoon commander, and there was one female truckie who was a driver, and the rest were males. But it was fine. It was fine. And I think, honestly, what it comes down to is, as long as you build that respectful relationship, and you have the mutual respect, and then it's just a person and a person, as opposed to a male and a female. Deploying as a platoon commander on operations, when I graduated, that was certainly not something I thought would ever happen. So it was just amazing. Yeah, just working closely with a bunch of people, doing something for the greater good, and just being part of that NZ Bat 3. We interact with people, we kick the ball around, we play the guitar, we go on patrols, presence patrolling to help people feel safe, and we interact and smile and wave and shake hands and have a laugh. When I got home, I went back to 10 Transport Company and went back to normal life. Did some coursing, got promoted to captain. Went up to Waiouru to be a staff member at the Officer Cadet School. Towards the end of Officer Cadet School is when I deployed to Afghanistan as a patrol 2IC on Crib 7. It was our job to just be there, be seen, talk, gather information and share that information. I would often be invited to talk to the wives, even with a male interpreter, wife or wives. And so I was able to get a little bit more of an insight into what was going on. Information, even just building trust by having a female. We had a female medic in our patrol as well, so there were two of us. But it certainly gave our patrol a different avenue to interact. They understood that our culture was different, and they respected that. There were times where I would lead the patrol for various reasons, and there was no difference in interaction. They would still look me in the eye and talk to me, and didn't feel like I was treated as not an equal. Deploying and going on operations is that's what I see as being the purpose of being in uniform. We'd never had a female deploy, an NZDF female deploy to South Sudan at that point. I would go over as what they called the Deputy Chief Planner. So basically you're a planner in the force headquarters. So based in Juba, the capital of South Sudan. There was certainly a challenge with some countries who perhaps didn't view females the same way as we do, or as equals, and I would often get called sir, even though I'd say, oh, well, because I'm a female, it's ma'am, and they say, oh, yes, sir. We were coming into the rainy season. All of a sudden, it just sounded like huge raindrops on the tin roof, just deafening, and a big crack of what could have been thunder. And it was that split second where I thought it was that, and then I thought that's not rain and that's not thunder. And it was artillery, mortars and gun fire, projectiles landing on the roof. And it was like, wow, here we go. The government forces, actually, the SPLA, had decided to attack the protection of civilian, or the POC camp, which was blistered on to the UN compound, compound in Juba. So this almost happened off and on over a number of days. So there were actually a few days. So the next morning was a Saturday morning, and things were actually quite quiet for a while. And anyway, then all hell broke loose again, and there were helicopter gunships, and what was happening was that basically the UN headquarters, whether or not it was a target, who knows, but it was certainly receiving the impacts. There were reports that huge numbers of our internally displaced people who lived in the POC camps were, because they're being targeted, it's like a shanty town. So they don't have protection from this sort of intense battle. And so these people are basically fleeing this war zone, and they're fleeing to come into the UN compound because they see that as safe. So what was happening was some of these troop contributing countries were not allowing them in. Now we've got to bear in mind that the mandate at this time, the very first mandate was protection of civilians. So our primary job as UNMISS, United Nations Mission in South Sudan, was to protect civilians. And we had some of our troop contributing countries pushing these people away, basically back into a very unsafe location. So that wasn't the right thing to do. And so myself and a couple of others, went down to try and help these soldiers on the ground understand that, it's actually our duty to protect them. It was actually quite surreal, to be honest, because I remember trying to talk to one of the officers of the troop contributing country that were responsible for this particular part of the perimeter. And, many of the soldiers had left their weapons and run away. They were, hiding under vehicles. They were certainly not watching their arcs or doing perhaps what I thought they should be doing. And so I found the officer in charge, and I was trying to explain to him, we've got to let these people in, and we've got to do what we can to protect them. He couldn't understand a word that I was saying, even with, charades in the middle of a battle. And he pulled out his phone and gave me his phone so I could type it into Google Translate. So I'm typing in my message to him on his smartphone while artillery is coming in. It was just very surreal. So in the end, he understood what we needed to do, but myself and a couple of others really gripped up groups of people that we could and kept them in some cover until there was a break in the activity, and then we could move them to somewhere that was a bit safer, and the only place we had was a large container park, which at least provided a little bit of cover from projectiles coming in. And you know, really that was it. It was nothing that any other person wouldn't do with my training. And even in my sort of short 25 years, things have changed tremendously. You know, some of the things that we do now, you know, we talk about parental leave, not maternity leave. We have a breastfeeding policy. We talk openly about the struggle it is for females to come back to work after having had a baby and meet physical standards. We're starting to talk about menopause for women, you know, perimenopause and menopause for women who are, you know, around my age, still serving. So, you know, the conversation has changed, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's really good. So as long as we continue to get better and better, then, you know, we can just pave the way for others to stay, to get them in the door and to help them stay.